You are listening to SPN, the Sports Podcasting Network. The Five Rings Podcast 2016 Rio Summer Olympics edition on the Sports Podcasting Network.
22 medals for Canada. I think that's where it's going to end, Kevin. We are a Canadian show, so we will start with that real quickly. Bronze medal just came on the pipe just before we came down the line, so that will probably end with 4 golds, 3 silvers, and 15 bronze, 22 medals. And, if you're listening from a larger country in the world, you may sniff at that. But
if you're in the States or Great Britain, it might seem small, but for us, it's quite an accomplishment we're feeling today.
All right, above Canada in the medal standings, there is only one country above them in the medal standings that has a smaller population. So I think that's how you look at that. Australia is that country. And people view the Australians of having this massive, incredible success in the Summer Olympics, and Canada only 7 medals behind them right now and overall. And that's a country that spends a lot of money on their summer athletics. So I think that's the way to look at that. I'd like to maybe close that gap, get a few more golds and silvers in future Olympics. But
Duane, never mind what they spend. They have more summer than us, period.
Yeah.
So it's easier to train for some days when you actually can do it outside than just trying to run on a treadmill because it's winter or have to travel to train.
Yeah, and you Aussies, don't get too full of yourself. If we do that combined table, maybe we'll do that in our wrap-up show.
Winter and summer, that's a good idea. Yeah. We could be first, maybe. I
think we'd probably jump up to 7th or 8th, and we're 10th right now. It depends on how you calculate them, obviously, because I've had this argument before, and most people do it by golds, and they only have the 4 golds. So I shouldn't say only. Four is a lot of golds.
It's more than we ever had, right? It's the only time we had that much gold, I think, was in 1992.
96, they had quite a few. Actually, 96 they only had 3. I think 92 was a funny games because they had a lot more. They did have a lot of success. I think they had 7 golds in 92. You're right. But they had a far less overall medals. The one thing, we'll wrap it up here after this, but the one thing I have heard some people point out, which I think might be true, is that the games in 92, 96, what made them seem to me anyway is a little bit better for Canada, even though the totals aren't there, are a couple things. There's more sports now, obviously, so you got to put that in context. If you add more sports back then, we probably have even more medals back then. The other part of it, too, is there seemed to be a lot more. It's either sink or swim right now for Canada, and that speaks to the On the Podium plan, where they basically invest heavily in athletes that they view having a medal chance, and they don't really spend a lot of money on athletes they don't. So they're not
when they're there, they have a chance. If they're there, they have a chance. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, when you see Canada use this in this Olympic, they're either top 10 or close to fighting for the podium, or you just don't see a Canadian in that event.
Yeah, and that's a big difference. There's less chance for that, oh my God, last second bronze out of the blue, because there's just less Canadians running in finals unless they're there with the medal and you're aware of them heading in, and that's a bit of a loss. And I think that would be the funding gap that they need to close next, and I don't know if they ever can, because it's the reality of sporting funding in this country is that if you win, you get money. If you don't, you don't, because you don't get the attention outside the games. And I don't think that makes us that unique to other countries in the world, but nonetheless, compared to the bad old days, sort of when that 90s bubble burst and there was those Olympics like Sydney and Athens and that, this is night and day better. So we'll take the S, Kevin.
No, exactly. And just before we move on to our medals, Duane, yesterday was quite an emotional day for me watching the Olympics, not just because of the Canadian women's national team, but because of the Evan Dunphy situation. I will get to you later when we talk about our medals, but just it's the first time we see him perform after having interviewed him a few times and talked to him, and it's the first time we see someone to that level that I know, actually, for me, competing that way. And wow, what a tough day it was. And I have to say, that was quite an experience.
Yeah, Evan Dunphy's story, as you said, we'll likely touch on that a little bit later on in this show here, but he finished 4th on the road. And then it was 3rd for quite a while, and it was reported as a bronze medal and even put on the medal standings as a bronze medal, and then it was taken away again. Evan could have taken one more appeal, and he may have even won that appeal, but he decided to not do that and just to stick with the fourth place finish. And that's the thing about events like that is I think maybe that would be. We'll get to it a little later, and it was a great result regardless. And I'm at peace with the fourth now. Obviously, I wanted him to get a medal. I've spoke to him. I've followed him on Twitter. I talked to him on Twitter. As much as you can know someone that you've never personally met,
exactly,
if you feel like you know him a little bit. So it had a bit more of a personal feel there to it, but nonetheless, hopefully, we haven't asked him yet. We're going to let Evan decompress for a little bit before we ask him, but we'll probably try and get him on to have a conversation about the overall experience in the days ahead. All right, Kevin, let's move into the medals now. Wood, let's start with your wood medal.
My wood goes to a weird concept that's called millimeters, centimeters, inches, if you want to say. Small distances that make a difference between getting a result or getting disqualified, especially in the world of track and field. It's crazy and happened in many different events over the last few days. Just thinking the shot put, a guy who just touched the top, barely the top of the little board, disqualified. Long jump, they have plasticine that makes sure that if you touch it, there's an imprint, they can see it. All those games of millimeters nowadays, it's crazy how one little millimeter here or there can affect 4 years, 8 years, a lifetime of preparation. And that's the amount of pressure, that's the amount of importance that special competition has. And my wood medal doesn't go necessarily to the athlete that's fight for those millimeters. That's the name of the game. But it's the officials sometimes that are quick to take a judgment, making when you DQ somebody and put him back in, it's very difficult emotionally when you DQ somebody for a good reason and then put it back in. We had a couple of instances of that happening over the last few days, and it makes for a weird competition. And millimeters, centimeters, it's such a small distance, and it's crazy how important and how impactful it is on athletes' lives.
Well, yeah. I mean, look, the rules are the rules, right? That's the thing. And so obviously, if you go a millimeter over the long jump board, then it's a foul. You can go 10 feet behind it, and it's not a foul. But you're not going to really win if you go 10 feet behind it. But you know what I mean?
Yeah. No, but it's such a small margin. It's mind-boggling to me.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I think that to add to that, and what I'll say to agree with you is that what I don't like is the indecision that has come out at sometimes, especially in the track venue, where they're left to sort of believe. So take the track, the 4x1 from last night when the Americans, and we'll show a little sympathy to our neighbors here for a second, although with the sort of the history of those athletes, I don't have a ton of sympathy for them, but that's another story altogether. That said, they're walking with their flags, and the same thing happened to Canada 4 years ago, right? You got the flags, and you're celebrating, and then all of a sudden, it's like the rug is pulled out under you, and that to me is the cruel thing. There's got to be a way, I would think, within the modern world that you can instantly let those guys know that they've failed to, like a sensor on the baton or something that lets them know they went out of the lane right away. That to me, so that they cross the line, and right there on the scoreboard, they're still going to have a moment of like, oh my God, no, but at least it's instant.
And the Canadian didn't get that moment. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
DeGrasse and the other three didn't get the moment to celebrate. They did it after post, but that's not the same thing, at least because of the fact that they'll get the medal tonight. They're going to have that moment. But the pure elation of when you're still out of breath and you're celebrating, they didn't get that.
Yeah, they didn't get the moment on the track. And, I guess maybe they would have got it and lost it before. So, yeah, if there's a way to do it so that it's more instant, so there's not this moment of uncertainty for the athletes, I think would be a fair way to do it. But I guess sport sometimes isn't fair, and we are.
I didn't want to go too dark and gloomy again on my wood. I went pretty far deep yesterday, and I wanted to keep a little lighted Saturday after all, and it's almost over.
All right. My wood medal is the fiasco around the Paralympics. Look, I know this isn't...
Speaking of light, no, this is not light at all.
Yeah. For those that don't know the history of the Paralympics versus the Olympics, the Paralympics were made as a requirement. And I'm not trying to be dismissive of the games when I say this, because obviously we see the value in them. But back in the day, there was less progressive people in the world when it came to handicap sport, to disadvantaged sport, right? I'm trying to even get the right way to put it. The para sports, that's the way to put it anyway. So they kind of made them add the Paralympics to the platform, to the thing. So you get the privilege of hosting the Olympics, and part of that privilege becomes the responsibility of also ensuring that all athletes in the world are taken care of, including the para athletes. Through the times, the para games have grown bigger and have become their own thing, and they still are attached to the Olympic movement, but they aren't the same as the IOC, right? The para associations aren't the same as the IOC association, so that's an important distinction for what I'm about to say. Anyway, this goes all the way up to London when we see the London Games, where the para games hit a pinnacle. They hit their high water mark. They are packed houses for the entire games. London embraces those games like no other city ever has. They make the para athletes feel special, feel accomplished like they are, and basically everyone thinks that this is a great moment for the Paralympics, and they're getting closer to being seen on par with the actual the non-para Olympics. And it's, even my words are betraying the fact of how the world sees them, right? Like, and I'm trying to be progressive about it, but even I am struggling with it. And that says a lot about how people still view them in places. And that's unfortunate. And that's kind of what my wood medal is speaking to. But anyway, to get it specific to right now, basically when the Rio organizing committee was supposed to provide funding to the Para Association, the Para World Association, to get out to the athletes themselves, to get them to Rio, because not every country supports their para athletes the way they should. And now we're in a situation, because that funding didn't come through, and Rio was basically had to do everything in its power to make sure the Olympics went off, that now these guys can't make it to the games. Now they can't get there anymore, and that's a big problem.
Well, yeah, it's seems like they were all in with those 2 weeks and didn't even think about what's going to happen after this Sunday.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, and I mean, look, we'll talk about these in the days ahead, in the in between. The games start the 7th of September, so there's not a big stretch between the time that the Olympics end and the Paralympics start. Usually, it's about a month. It's a little less this time, so there's not a lot of time to figure this stuff out. But hopefully, there will be efforts to make sure that all the athletes that want to get there, that have qualified to get there, can get there. I've even heard talk of like crowdfunding for it, which is unfortunate that it would come to that. The other side of this too is we've seen the problems with the attendance at the Olympics themselves. The real games, apparently only 12% of tickets have been sold. So we've gone from full crazy houses in London till they're going to be playing in front of empty arenas, and that's unfortunate. But you know, you put it on you consider that the Olympics right now are still playing with a lot of empty seats, so it's not really a slap in their face that way. It's just unfortunate when you saw it in London the other way.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll see if everything happened the way it's supposed to. Hopefully, there's no event cancellation and anything in that side for the Para Games. Hopefully, every event takes place for those games.
Exactly. All right, let's move on to your bronze medal.
Bronze medal, Catherine Pendrell, mountain bike for Canada. She got her Olympic medal. A great story, Duane, that I'm going to ask you to explain in a second. But Catherine Pendrell from Canada, she in mountain bike, she has been the World Cup champion for years. She has won medal all World Cups, World Championships. A gold medal was her objective in London 2012. And unfortunately, she had a bad race, crashed, broke her collarbone, finished 20th, and had a difficult time between games, but got her act and training and everything together just in time for today. Great technical race, 3rd and 4th for Canada, but for Catherine Pendrell, she got her medal and she was elated after the race.
Yeah, she was one of the favorites for gold in London. A highly profiled athlete. Like I said, one of the favorites. A lot of attention here for that. Unfortunately, in training on the London course, just before the Olympics started, she had a fall, which happens in mountain biking, and she broke her collarbone. Common injury in mountain biking, but could you imagine trying to ride in an Olympic final with a broken collarbone, Kevin?
I cannot even imagine breathing with a broken collarbone and not doing anything physical outside of like just existing.
Yeah, so she broke her collarbone about 3 weeks before her race, and it had healed just enough that she was able to sort of, with whatever kind of, they also can't take pain medication in any real way either. So imagine that.
Exactly. Well, yeah, because it's banned. It's one of the banned substances. So no, it's quite it's crazy. Collarbone hurts not for a long time. It hurts for about a month and a half until it settles if you're careful and you're good to go after. But it's that month and a half that it's really painful and hard to do anything because it's attached to anything you're doing with.
Yeah, so she had to shut her training down, obviously, for, it was about 3 weeks before I think it was 2 weeks before the game. So she had to shut down her training for about 3 weeks to allow her 1 week to get back on that course and compete. And that's all she could do, really, is to ride the course. Finished, I think, 20th or 21st or something like that, way beyond her potential. However, she stuck with it. She said, she's open about it, that after that she was depressed. She kind of couldn't train hard for a year or so after because it was just devastating for her to lose that opportunity. She did get back into the sport. She decided she was still young enough. She was 36 now. She still felt she was still young enough to have one more games in her. She got back on that bike and she pushed through and she got her bronze medal today. And I'm sure for her, after the experience she had in London, that bronze is as good as gold. And that was a pretty exciting race. I love watching the mountain bike racing, other than the fact that it's the end of the games, always a bit of an association there. But it's kind of a fun course. It gives you an idea of what the nature around the host cities look like, because you really get to see it.
True, and it evolved over the year now. It's in a more controlled environment than prior mountain biking race that happened maybe 20 years ago. Now it's a 5-kilometer circuit that's not necessarily the most hilly, but because you do the circuit many times, those miles adds up. It's a very controlled environment. There's like a lane with obstacle, with there's pallets with rocks, and it's a built course, so there's more control and more safety than just going all out on the mountain and just going, which is more what the World Cup was before. Now, with the advent of timing and circuits, they use that aspect more in mountain biking. So that was made for a more TV-friendly type of race because the circuit is only so long and you have time checks. You know exactly who and what position everybody is. So that way it's easier to bring a product on television with that race. But it would have been even fantastic to climb a mountain and all that, but it's different events. We're talking about this here now with the amount of technical abilities necessary to climb those. Like, it's a hill and it's made of rocks. It's not necessarily that easy to climb on top speed with your mountain bike. So there's a lot of bike handling skills. Basically the name of the game.
Well, yeah, for sure. You can see the lines that they take over the rocks, and the different obstacles for sure are very technical. It's a very technical sport. The other good thing about having the set course, like you say, is that it will remain open after the games as a recreational course for high level recreational users, I'm sure. So that's something that you would
hope, at least you would hope that they would keep it.
I know that in past Olympics, that's what's happened. You could go ride the course in London if you wish. I don't know. You think you'd probably have to be in pretty good shape, even as a recreational rider, to ride these things, because they're pretty technical, as you said. But the park itself, I know that the one in London, if I remember correctly, was built, the infrastructure of it was built to last long term and to really serve the community as well, for hiking trails and biking trails and all that sort of stuff. So that's just another good legacy project that exists there. They're not really, you could argue environmentally maybe that they're disrupting a few things, but it's not that bad of an environmental impact if you're carving out a trail among something that the community can use afterwards, Kevin.
Exactly. It's better bikes than motorbikes as well, too. So.
All right. I'm going to go to my bronze medal, and I feel guilty making this a bronze medal, but the man's never won a bronze medal, so I'm going to give him one anyway. It's Usain Bolt. And he finished his triple last night, and we'd be remiss if we did not bring it up. The funny thing about it is that everyone just knew that Jamaica was going to win that damn thing, so I'll be honest. I wasn't even looking at Jamaica when they crossed the line. I was looking at that battle for second, third, and fourth. And,
how about Japan? Duane? How about Japan?
First, I thought I'd lost that battle for who I was cheering for, but that turned out different after the fact. At any rate, yeah, Japan deserves a lot of credit too, because they, as I said the other day, that they train for it. They're a tactical team that doesn't have the front end speed, but because of the precision in their passes and their ability to maintain their speed consistently throughout, there's a lot of credit to be given for that. So yeah, exactly. Japan could get a bronze medal here as well. So why don't I give them a co-bronze medal? But no, you've got to.
Well, what impressed me about Japan, Duane, is the technical side of it, because they don't have any one of those sprinters that can individually do good. But what they can do is practice those relays, those transmission of the baton, the technical ability of running that bend while you're accelerating, or just taking that baton and technically achieving a great lap. And that's what they have done in the heats, in the semis, and surprisingly in the final.
All right. Yeah, of course they did. Hey, look, and I'm sure that you might talk about something else in a minute here in terms of the Canadian side of things, but no, the 4x1 is always exciting, and part of it's the chaos around it, and that the Japan managed to stay out of that chaos, and that deserves a lot of credit for that. Kevin, do you want to move to your bronze?
My silver medal.
Oh, silver, pardon me.
Yep, my silver is Andre DeGrasse, Akeem Hayes, Aaron Brown, and Brendan Rodney. Bronze medalists in the 4x100 meter relay. Yes, thanks to the disqualification of the American, they stepped over their lane. They stepped in the other lane and they got disqualified after the fact, which gave Canada the bronze medal. It's quite karma, maybe, because the Canadian have been disqualified a few times over the years. It happened in London, and they would have a surprise medal. They got disqualified, and it happened in the Pan Am Games last year in 2015. They would have won that damn thing, and this got disqualified. So it's kind of vindication, a little bit, a surprise medal, but the way Andre DeGrasse ran that last anchor leg, caught up maybe 3 meters on everybody, and if that race would have lasted just a few meters longer, he would have caught up with the Japanese.
Well, yeah, absolutely. He wasn't catching Bolt. No one was. But certainly Andre DeGrasse over the past 2 weeks has proven that he is the second fastest and best sprinter in the world right now. And I include Gatlin in that because we're talking about the overall sprints in terms of the ability to run a relay and to run the 200. And certainly DeGrasse has done that. And his run last night, his split time last night would have been very similar to Bolt's in that last 100 meter. Now, Bolt was celebrating for the end. So, let's keep that. Bolt's an alien, though. That's he's just on a different planet. So
what I rewatched yesterday, Duane? I rewatched the world record he did, the one from Beijing, the 963. I rewatched it, and 20 meters to go, he's already not even running at full speed anymore. And he could have maybe done a 940 in that race. And I think he's not able to run that fast anymore. But a 958 that he did just a year after was still very powerful, but he was more technical in the 963. He could have maybe during the Beijing Olympics, he would have gone for it. He would have maybe run a 940, 930, maybe. He's not under 9. I don't think it's possible, but he would have brought that bar closest to 9 as anybody else.
Yeah, I'll say this about him. He has the physiology and the natural ability that if he woke up tomorrow and decided that he wanted to compete through Tokyo, I'm not convinced he wouldn't win in Tokyo too. Even at a very advanced age at that time for a sprinter. It would be a lot closer because of that advanced age, but that is just telling as anything that even when he gets into his late 30s, I suspect he would still be amongst the top. Or 33, I guess he would only be. So yeah, he would be still amongst the top sprinters in the world at that point. I don't think he's going to do that. Obviously, he said he's not going to do that, but I think it speaks to as much to him not wanting to do the training, which you can't blame him at this point because he has a very comfortable life to live, and he might as well start living it.
Yeah, he might even go play some soccer in Manchester. Who knows?
Not gonna. Yeah, he can go ahead. If Manchester United wants to sign him, they can go right ahead. I would enjoy that very much. They should start him in the derby.
You just put him on the outs. You just put him equal to the defender. Just lob a ball, go for it.
Yeah. And then does he have a touch though? I doubt it.
True. It's important. Yeah, but
yeah. Okay.
That's my silver medal today, Duane. The Canadian quatuor of DeGrasse, Akeem Hayes, Aaron Brown, and Brendan Rodney.
All right. When we did our Commonwealth Games coverage, I watched a lot of Commonwealth Games, and at the end of the games, we gave our gold, silver, bronze, and wood medals overall for the entire competition, as we will do for Rio on Monday or Tuesday, depending on Kevin and I's schedule. The gold medal winner for me in those games was the Brownlee brothers. They once again have finished gold and silver in the Olympic triathlon yesterday early. So they are getting my silver medal today for their performance in the triathlon. The Brownlee brothers are unworldly. And I will make the argument, they always say the best athlete of the games, like the world's greatest athlete is the decathlon winner. To me, nah, it's the triathlon winner. That is the world's greatest athlete to me. And the Brownlee brothers are by far the greatest family out there.
Here, I'll put it this way. The most well-rounded athlete is a decathlon champion. The most endurance and fit athlete is the triathlon winner.
Fair enough. And the weirdest athlete is the winner of the modern pentathlon?
No. Or the shot, or like the 10 meter pistol shot or something.
You know, the modern biathlon is a very athletic competition. It's just kind of very strange to modern taste, which is ironic that it's called modern. At any rate, no, Alistair is the guy that is the top. It's Alistair and Johnny. Johnny is, you know, God help Johnny at I was going to say Thanksgiving. They're British. They don't have Thanksgiving, but it's at Boxing Day, at their Boxing Day dinner. They must, you know, it'd be hard for him because he's the silver medalist across the board over his brother Alistair. But those two are phenomenal athletes, a phenomenal athletic family. There's a history in it as well. And they were just dominant in the triathlon, which is a very difficult event to be dominant in. Alistair was the London champion as well. First time in the triathlon's history that there's been a repeat winner. Simon Whitfield here in Canada finished on the podium in back-to-back games, which is an incredible accomplishment, one of Canada's best ever accomplishments in the Olympics, but not back-to-back golds. That stands for Alistair Brownlee. So Alistair Brownlee and his brother Johnny, who a silver medalist in the Olympic triathlon, is nothing to sniff at. They are my silver medalists for the day, Kevin.
My gold medal, Duane, goes to Evan Dunphy for capturing the attention of an entire nation yesterday. And it was a weird feeling when everybody knew who I was talking about for once. It's been 2 years we've been talking about him. And yesterday we finally had the day where everywhere I was looking, it was Evan Dunphy. And God, it felt so good. Felt so right. Could not happen to a better person, he's an advocate for clean sports, investigative reporter, even with the Russia Minsk race walking scandal 2 years ago when we had him on the show to talk about those situations. It just felt so good. That story, that race, it's compelling. It was so close, and the tangle of the drama and the way he reacted to it made a nation even more proud of him. Personal best, a new Canadian record. He bettered his Canadian record by almost 2 minutes on a 50-kilometer distance. It was only his fifth 50-kilometer ever, and he improved every time. It looks well for Tokyo. It's a sport that you become better in your mid to late 30s. He's 25. Evan Dunphy, performance of the day for me, and maybe of the games. When you achieve a personal best of 2 minutes better than your prior one, what an improvement.
Yeah, and look, I mean, the only downfall to me on the day for Evan's performances is that we can no longer claim him as our own little secret, right?
Nope. He's Canada's now.
He's Canada's Evan Dunphy, and everyone saw exactly what we saw when we instantly got him. Like the way we met Matt, quote unquote, Evan, is through our friend Olympic Stats Man, who pointed the blog out, and we ended up connecting through him with him, and he was gracious with his time, immediate, never questioned it, and you can instantly tell sincerity, right? Like you can't fake sincerity when it comes to stuff like this. And when we had him on, he was just instantly likable and understandable as just a really grounded and sincere and passionate athlete about clean sport and about his own sport, and it really came through. So to see him get the widespread interest and people paying attention to his story, and like Clara Hughes talking about him and things like that.
Well, he did 10 minutes with Ron McLean this morning live on CBC. He literally had the recognition that him, Inaki Gomez, and all the rest of Race Walk Canada have been working hard in the last 10 years to change people's mentality. It might have happened yesterday.
Yeah, and look, Evan can't hide anymore from that, and I don't think he wants to. I mean, he will enjoy that pressure. And at 25, as you said, from a purely athletic, that's the problem with this. You can't talk about him on a just athletic level because his story is more than that. It's bigger than that, and that's why we play him up so much. But certainly, he will be seen as an athlete too. And when going into Tokyo, he's going to be seen as a medal favorite. He will get all of that attention that they want and have been looking for years. Real quickly, I want to read his statement, not all of his statement, but I want to read the part that is relevant and sort of speaks to his character. As we know that he was given the bronze medal and then it was taken away. But anyway, this is from his statement that was released by Athletics Canada. Following that, the Japanese, as is their right, filed an appeal. This afternoon, we learned that their appeal was successful and that they had been reinstated to the bronze medal position. It was then left for me to decide whether to pursue this further with an appeal to the Court of Arbitration for Sport. Following my return to the village and my viewing of the incident, I made the decision not to appeal, as I believe the right decision stood. Many people can understand the pain athletes are in in there and in 3.5 hours into such a grueling race. I believe that both the Japanese and the athlete and myself got tangled up, but what broke me was that I let it put me off mentally once I lost that. And once I lost that focus, my legs went to jello. Contact is part of our event, whether written or unwritten, and it is quite common. And I don't believe that it was malicious or done with an intent. Even if an appeal to the CAS was successful, I would not have been able to receive that medal with a clear conscience, and it isn't something that I would have been proud of. There you go.
I'm not even surprised. That's the type of respect and admiration I have for Evan Dunphy. I was kind of expecting something like this, and it makes it even better. And that fourth place is even better than a gold medal because of how he handled it.
All right. My gold medal, Kevin, is that's a good one too, and it would have been mine. But my gold medal is going to go to another athlete, Canadian athlete that is very well known in this country, that carried the flag in the closing ceremony at the end of London and really captured the country's attention in London. Was the athlete of the year, the first soccer player to ever achieve that honor, Canadian Athlete of the Year, following the London Olympics. Many people had questioned whether or not she was still up to the same level that she was up to heading into these games. She proved them all wrong while facing, a personal issue that she didn't make public, and that her father had passed away just a couple months before the games. This athlete, of course, is Christine Sinclair, the captain of the Canadian women's soccer team, and the scorer of the goal that gave Canada back-to-back bronze medals. The first time they'd won back-to-back medals in any team sport since lacrosse was in the games in 1904. So
you remember when I tweeted, when I texted you about a week and a half ago? Who is that team, and what have they done with my Canadian women's national team? Well, I'll keep that team. It's wow, what a tournament. We talked about London and how it was a fluke because of this. This time, it's because of nothing else than the play of the Canadian women's national team.
And look, and there were more people involved in this win than just Sinclair. Sinclair did almost single-handedly win them the bronze in London. There's no doubt about that. And to point out her success now and to single her out now isn't to diminish what happened, what the other players did, Janine Becky and all the players there. I'm sorry, there's so many of them that I didn't want to get listing them all and miss someone.
Rose yesterday, who scored the first goal and could have scored like 3 other more.
Exactly. And Becky's the one that's going to sort of be the next generation, and the one that's going to have that pressure of trying to be, quote unquote, the next Christine Sinclair, which is a ridiculous statement because there will never be another Christine Sinclair, both in raw statistics and the unique influence that she brought upon the game here. But I did think that just because of her role, because of the personal tragedies that she's had recently, and because of her continued success late into her career now, 250th cap, won the bronze medal in her 250th cap. And I guarantee you that the idea of winning an Olympic medal for most of those first 100 caps was absurd. It
was ludicrous.
It was completely absurd for Canada. So it's a remarkable accomplishment there. And to speak to the team, what I tweeted out at Final Whistle, I'll repeat it here as much as I can remember it exactly. It was that basically the 2012 team will be probably more fondly remembered by Canadians, by general Canadians, because of the narrative behind it, because of the refereeing decision against the Americans, because of the epic game against the U.S., which is one of the classic Olympic games of all time. And it was, not probably, like the referee made a mistake in that, which would screw Canada over, and that really plays into it. But the fact of the matter is, with inside the soccer bubble for which I live in, this team will be far more cherished and far more celebrated in the years ahead, because this team earned the medal absolutely 100%. You cannot argue that they did not deserve bronze. You could absolutely argue that they got lucky to win bronze in London, but this time, no, they earned it. And they
could have been more too.
It.
Like Duane, they could have won silver or gold, and they would have deserved it too. That's how well they have played tactically, technically, and the mentality they had in the tournament.
With a young team too, and we mentioned Sinclair, we singled her out, but all those young athletes have been integrated into this program, and it makes me, the only regret I had watching them this time is like, I wish we would have tried that last year when the World Cup was here. But maybe that's unfair, because there was a generation there that particularly came from that bronze medal team. And if you look at if you're new to the Canadian women's national team, and you watched them play last year in the Women's World Cup, and you watched them play in London, and you're as surprised by it as not, that's the difference, is they injected a bunch of young players that weren't part of that team, the 2015 team, that was really an echo of the 2012 team. Whereas this one is kind of like there's a distant echo of 2012 there in their top players, but by and large, this is a new generation that's came in and has just been supplemented with a few veterans and veterans like Diana Matheson, who I suspect maybe played her last really important game for Canada yesterday and had a hell of a couple games too. The semifinal when she came on, she was the jolt of energy that almost got Canada back in that game.
And speaking of game players, one of the best performers in the Olympics, Melissa Tancredi, whenever it's on the Five Rings platform, she performs as best as she ever has, and this year hasn't been different.
Yeah, and it's absolutely will be Melissa Tancredi's last Olympic appearance for sure, and so maybe even her last cap for Canada. I suspect. I suspect that Canada, outside of probably Sinclair, will likely go completely young next year. There's nothing to play for next year in reality. I mean, it's a building year towards the next cycle. So the idea that Schmidt and Matheson and these players that have been around a long time will be taking time away from their club career to play friendlies, although certainly the fans would like to see that in certain parts of the country, and you would hope that the CSA would once again get these women out there in front of people like they did following London, because they need to continue to build on this. It's a sport is growing with this women's success, but they need to keep pushing it. But I think it's time to go completely in with the kids and the work that's being done at the lowest level. Bev Priestman is the woman who runs the development level below John Herdman. We all know John Herdman's name, but Priestman's name we don't know. She's doing a lot of work along with her team there that really has led to this bronze medal. And look, we're getting into soccer today conversation now, and that's fine for a second, so I'll wrap it up. But certainly it's just an overall bronze as good as gold again, and lots to build on for the future, Kevin.
Exactly, Duane.
All right, let's call it a day. One more of these tomorrow, and then we'll do the wrap-up show, as I said, either Monday or Tuesday. I don't think that one will be live, guys, but we'll get that out as a podcast. And until that time, Kevin, as always,
on your podium for one last time. You were listening to SPN, the Sports Podcasting Network. Visit us, sportspodcastingnetwork.com.